Yo, yo, what's going on? How's everybody doing? Sweet. Good to have everybody in today. Got a lot of things to do. Yo, yo, what's going on? Hold on here. Let me... How's everybody doing? TV here. Cool. Let's get to work, man. Option, how you doing, buddy? Ah, it's good to see you, brother. Good to see you. What you guys been trading? Everybody been surviving. The market's been a little bit nasty lately, but we're going to be able to fix that because there's still some good stuff going on. Oh, yeah. Hey, Jason, how are you, brother? KG, what's up? Man, it's a pleasure to have everybody, as always. Happy Wednesday. Hope you guys had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. You got drunk. You had a little fun. You know the drill. Cool, man. Well, let's get into it because the market's been a little bit nasty of recent, but you know, it's to be expected. So let's take a look at Bitcoin right now and kind of get a gauge of where we're going. So, after we kind of made this topping formation over here, you can see this is basically like a head and shoulders pattern. What we're getting now is just a good old fashioned dump in the markets, and we're not getting really too much reason on why it's happening, but it is definitely happening, and we're definitely going to have to keep abreast because at the moment, the market is just showing us signs of weakness. And I always look at Ethereum first because it's the one I trade the most, and it's been the one that's got the most relative strength this year. So it's always the first thing that I typically look at. But you can see here, what we've been doing is just trailing down this 9 EMA here. And we had a good bounce the other day when we hit that 500 mark, and we ran right into the 9 EMA, and now we're kind of coming back. And so, if we come back and we break down these old lows right here, we could kind of take this thing real quickly back down to the 300 mark. So we've got to definitely be careful right now. What we're seeing is just kind of a risk-off event. There hasn't been much news in the market like saying this is happening or that's happening like we have in previous dumps. It's just right now the selling is relentless. Anytime you see any type of strength in the market, so like if you're looking, even a couple days ago, we had some nice strength in the market, and we had basically like a one-day run, and we tapped right into that 9 EMA. When we got up here, we tapped right into it, and we immediately started to roll over, and now we're starting to get the weakness. You can see here what's starting to develop is a series of higher lows. Every time we're bouncing right now, we're just getting a higher low. And so as of the moment, you guys got to probably stay in cash right now because there's just no trade out there to be taken. Same type of deal if you're looking at the daily chart of Bitcoin. It kind of smacked right dab into that 200 SMA, and we've been literally just kind of trending down this 9 EMA the whole time. And so we're not getting any action really in the market. And even worse than that, what's often happening is we're getting like these one-day pops when we get oversold, and then it just looks like, oh man, like, hey, maybe we're going to have some follow-through and some bounce days, but we're just not getting them, right? And so till we can close over this 9 EMA, we need a candle to close over this thing. It's risk off at the moment. And what I mean by risk off is your best bet is to really be in cash right now, or to just sit and watch, because otherwise, it's just risky, and if you have like things that, there are like everyday kind of little altcoins and stuff going, and so there will be some plays out there, but for the most part, if you're looking at the general market, we're just not getting any strength in there. And so there's a good shot that we come down and kind of retest these kind of old lows here, and we're really not that far off. You know, we're 800 points away, give or take, from getting back down there. Now, what's going to happen, and this is where things get a little bit dicey, is, you know, usually, you know, your third test of a resistance level, as long as it's not extended going into it, can be, you know, can be a breakdown spot. So, you know, we've got to be careful, you know, when we're dealing with the market here, because we break down below these levels, and it looks like we should test them. And that's when things can get a little bit dicey, and so we've got to be really, really careful. During these type of phases, you know, sometimes the best trade is no trade. And granted, there are every day, like, certain stock, you know, certain coins that get pumped, like today there's Theta, it's getting pumped on Binance, and so there will be certain ones that you can trade, but in general, there's just not anything, there's not anything easy. You know, there's definitely not anything easy. So, like, you know, today, you know, some of the guys in our chat room were trading this. And so you will see this type of action where you'll have every day kind of something twirling around on some of these little alts. My preference in general is not to keep too much BTC. I never keep any BTC on hand because BTC is always a big turd. And so I do miss some of these altcoins sometimes because, you know, then you got to go out and buy BTC, then you got to go buy this thing, and when the whole market's just getting pullbacks, it's really, really tricky to do. So, you know, my best bets right now are till you start to close over that 9 EMAs, to really just chill out or trade selectively. You know, if you get some strength in the markets that lasts for more than, you know, one spike, you know, look and potentially take some trades, but otherwise you've got to be just real careful. There's two types of markets. So when you have a bull market or a trending market, everybody makes money basically because everything goes up. But when you have something that's either coming down or it's going in a sideways motion, what you have is a trader's market. And in a trader's market, you've got to be really, really nimble. You can't just sit there and buy something and hold it overnight and expect to make some money. You're aggressively trading intraday on smaller term time frames and taking, like, you know, little real small chunks here and there to kind of get out of, you know, to get into some trades. And so there's definitely some things that you can do, but this is the problem I always have with kind of the market when it's downtrending like this. See, when it spikes and you finally get like an update in the market, almost the whole move is made in like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, right? And so if you miss that opening spike, you're kind of just left shuffling around, and then it just comes right back down. And we've seen this type of action really for weeks, where it's like you get one big monster push for like an hour, and you're like, okay, all systems are a go, let's run with this. And then you just flatline for a while, and then you know, things get faded off, and that's happening with a lot of different, you know, issues. You know, like this ZRX is something I trade quite a bit, and you know, it had the same thing. Like, it just looked all fine and dandy, and it's on this beautiful trend, and it got really, really nutty for a hot second. I was long some, and you know, I woke up and I'm like, crap, man, this thing hit my target. But then by the time I woke up, it was already back down to 130, and now you can see it's just been getting smoked out. And so that's where, you know, you've got to be careful. This is for nimble people that can stay up and trade really fast, you know, and really keep an eye on things, versus, you know, 6 months ago, you could buy something, set your stop, and it would trend for days. And so you didn't have to monitor it tick by tick on your phone or anything like that, or stay at your computer, you know, because you were in that trending market. And now we're not there. And so all of these type of things, even when something looks really hot, I mean, look at this. This is like a picture-perfect flag breakout over here. It spikes up, and then, you know, you wake up in the morning, and you're like, oh, it's all the way back down. And then they just keep going back down. And this type of pattern is a rollover pattern. We're seeing this quite a bit. If you actually really think about it, what does it look like? It looks like somebody's giving you the middle finger. It looks like somebody's giving you a middle finger, and it did give the middle finger. And that's where I have even trouble with this type of market, is that, you know, you may sit around in a consolidation for just frigging 6 hours, and then it just spikes, and then boom, it's back down, and that makes it just much more difficult. You know, right now, I mean, the real trenders are happening. The real trenders are happening in the stock market. You know, the stock market, you're getting trenders all day with some of these things, where you're seeing just monster moves and some beautiful trenders happening. And, you know, a month ago, the market was dick, and now you're seeing all these stocks just trending like all damn day and just exploding. And so, you know, that's why it's really important to be able to kind of trade both, so that you can still capture like good chunks of trades when you see them, but you can't be beholden to just coins, 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 coins all the time, because you're not getting that trending environment. Now, does that last forever? No. Right? These downtrends, they go for like a month. They might go for 2, and then before you know it, right, you're squeezing for a month or something like that. And that could happen just anytime relatively soon. You know, you may see this Bitcoin start to trend again. We'll see how it acts around this support area. You know, we'll see how it acts around the support area and go. And yeah, I know a lot of times people see some of these small coins and they hear some guy be like, oh, I just made a killing on it. It's like, dude, well, there's 3,000 coins out there, and yeah, one went today. It doesn't make it a healthy market. It is nice to catch them, though. I wish I fucking caught the data. Right? I could use a little winner, too. But otherwise, you could just see it's a sea of red. When your watch list is a sea of red, that's always, to me, just like the classic sign to just say, you know, this is probably not the day to trade. I know a lot of people just say we'll accumulate when it gets lows and stuff like that, but when you play that game, you know what happens? You just get lower and lower and lower. So at some point you give up, and then the market goes. And so you've got to be just real careful with that type of stuff. So, you know, in general for us, I mean, our game plan's got to be a couple things. Is, well, we got to watch how we act when we get around support. You know, we got to watch how we act when we get around support. The other thing to watch is, you know, once we get to some level of support, do we start the round here? Does your 9 EMA start to curl higher? Because if it does, it tells you that the short-term trend may be starting to ease up, and then you can break over it, and, you know, you may start a run. And so you definitely could bottom out there. But what we have to be careful about is if we smash into support and the 9 EMA is curling on top of it, then most likely it's going to be some type of short, and you've just got to either be shorting, and I use Kraken to short. Otherwise, you know, you're just kind of stuck there. I know a lot of people like the Bitmax and stuff like that, but that's never been my cup of tea. The 100-to-1 leverage kind of deal, it just doesn't make any action for me. And yeah, you know what, the CMT, I did hear a lot of people kind of chattering about that also, Cyber Miles. So, you know, this one's been running for a little bit, so you will see 1 or 2 coins that are just starting to, you know, really push on it. So one thing to kind of do is keep a list of all the Binance coins and then start to filter them by percentage gainers, you know, in the morning when you get up. And what that'll do is just make you aware of anything that could be running. And so you can kind of put your cash towards those particular areas versus, you know, just hoping and praying that something is coming back down. So you can see, so if you go on Binance.com, right, what you can do is, you know, really filter this thing by, you know, 24-hour change. And so then you'll start to see, like, what's popping around. And that'll give you at least an idea of some different potential coins that you could be watching, you know, that you could be watching. And then it's just really easy, right? You're just really pulling up, you know, you're really pulling up the chart, putting it on your list, and then seeing if it's, you know, if it's worth a damn. You know, so that's one kind of easy way to do. So that's something I like to do in the mornings and just see how things go. Is I'll go in and just take a quick gander and see what are the top gainers on Binance, see if there's anything that could be moving or that might be worth our trouble, and then you can put them on your list and watch them. For me at this particular time, because Bitcoin is just in the pooper, I prefer not to hold any Bitcoins for the off chance that I may find an altcoin to trade, I'd rather just stay in USDT and buy the Bitcoin and then, you know, buy the alt if I need to, if I find something that is going to have a goose in the gander on it. So that's going to be kind of my game plan. You can see the one thing we'll have to really keep an eye on too is as Bitcoin approaches those lows, you know, Ethereum has still got like $200 to fall, $200 to fall till its lows. So if you start to see, you know, if you start to see Bitcoin just get pullbacks back down to those lows, you know, I'll be quick with the trigger and just short Ethereum down all the way back down to the 300s. And, you know, we'll play it that way. And then we start to see if Bitcoin starts to bottom out. And then we can go and, you know, take our bets. I will say the one thing to really keep an eye on over the next coming weeks, anytime the market seems to have even a little bit of a bounce day, this ZRX just comes out of nowhere and starts to really shred. It's got a great range to it. So I would say, like, out of the alts, this one it's liquid and it's got really good range. And so I do tend to always kind of use that as my go-to. I can't find this IDEX, but I will keep an eye on it. You know, beyond that, I mean, all this stuff just looks like junk, right? This Batcoin, this thing looks like it's probably getting back down to 20 cents, which I think at around 20 cents, we're going to probably get some longer term buys. Anything under 20 cents is going to be, if it can hold, you know, its lows were like 17, 18. If it can hold, it's only 10 cents away. If it can hold there, that could be a decent one to keep an eye on. And then, you know, ZRX has been my go-to for at least range purposes when the market starts to go. I haven't used IDX before, but I will be keeping an eye on. Yeah, I'm watching TRX and stuff for this mainnet stuff, but this mainnet stuff may be just kind of what's it called? A wolf in sheep's clothing or something like that. When the market's getting waxed, you know, whether something launches on mainnet or not may not mean anything. You know, these things kind of run in advance of that anyways, and this thing's getting just smoked out. And so I prefer not to step in front of the bus unless I see a surefire way that it's going to go. But otherwise, yeah, like EOS looks okay, but it also looks like a hoe. It also looks like a hoe. You know, to me, this looks like a bear flag. So, you know, I don't know if this thing, you know, this thing holds. Like, it could just sit here and round. If it starts to curl higher, you know, sure, it could be something. But, I mean, it very well could take this right here and break back lower. And so that's where you've got to kind of go with these things is, you know, this thing was just $6. It had its run, and now it's getting smoked, and we'll have to see how it acts. But you don't have a surefire trade on this bad boy on EOS right now. And that's the thing is, if you're going to make a trade, you want to make sure that you've got something that's like a surefire trade. Otherwise, you know, you got to leave that thing alone. You know, a hoe is cool, but it's a hoe. And it's not Friday, it's Wednesday. So that's not going to work for us. So we got to leave that bad boy alone. IOTA's a hoe too. You know, it had a nice day the other day. That's for sure. But IOTA does this all the time when it's in a downtrend. It'll have one big day to get everybody excited. Then it just kind of comes back down. What we need to see is a pattern, right? Some type of bottoming pattern that tells us, okay, the bottom's in this. Like, you know, over here, we had a bottoming pattern, right? You know, you had this big downtrend, but then you got the rounding action. You got your EMA starting to curl up. And so when you bust higher, it's like, all right, you've got something that could go. So this thing is going to just need some work, you know. If it could just chill for a bit, then that will allow it to help, right? It'll allow it to heal. Time is the only thing that really heals. Bottoms, when you're talking about trading, bottoms are very rarely an event. They, most of the time, are a process, and so they take a little bit of time to bottom out. But we did pop, and we are hanging over the 9 EMA, so now we'll have to see, like, do we take out this range right here? You know, that could set it on its next leg, or does it start coming back down here and break this low, then you're going to see this thing right back down to $1. You know, this could have just been a fake out. So those are the kind of two levels you want to watch on IOTAs. You know, if it takes out this range right here, then, you know, you may start, you know, your next run. But if this was just a one-day pop and you start to trickle back down, then, you know, that's all it was just a one-day pop. And you can't depend on that. It's hard to build your trading account, or it's hard to build even a system of trading if the coins that you're looking at just pop for one day and then they die down. Because timing that one-day pop, I mean, you've got to really be sitting there looking at that thing, you know, 24/7 before you can even catch it. And even then, catching it is hard, right? Catching it is hard. And that's why usually we're going to need to see some bottoming process and some bottoming patterns to develop before we start to really put any money to work on these bad boys. And the other part is this, guys. Look, like I told you, the stock market's hot right now, you know, and so when the cryptos are slow like this, flood some of your cash into the markets, and you can day trade the crap out of, you know, a lot of just beautiful trenders that, you know, you can get like consistent, steady money on. You can take a couple bucks here, there, and you don't have to sit there 24 hours and watch them, and you know, you're good to go. You know, I only took a couple trades today, but I made $1,400 trading stocks, you know, but couldn't find anything in cryptos, you know, so that's where, you know, you've got to go with this. Is that, you know, in the markets, you may find other things to trade. It doesn't always have to be just cryptos. We've got to be in the game of being multifaceted. We've got to be in the game of going where the action is, because otherwise you're not going to go. And every crypto chart looks the same. It doesn't matter if you look at it Zcash or XLM. They all look like house, right? They all are doing the same thing. They're just riding dirty along their 9 EMAs in a big downtrend. So just because something looks cheap doesn't mean anything. You know, XLM looked cheap a couple weeks ago, and it looked cheap last week, and it looks cheap today, and it looked cheap yesterday, and it looks cheap the day before. But at what point does that cheapness or sense of value start to bring in buyers versus sellers, right? All you're seeing right now is a switch in control of certain coins. You're seeing the switch in control from buyers to sellers are in control, right? They're running the show in these bad boys right now, and there's not much you can do about it. Well, there's nothing you can do about it till you just get that moment where you get the bottoming pattern start to develop. Yeah, so that's, you know, that's just the nature of the game right now. So for me personally, I'm just kind of sitting this bad boy out. Right now, I'll selectively take trades here or there. If I start to see something that is, it's hot, it's delicious, if I start to see those bottoming patterns, but otherwise, you know, we don't have anywhere to go. Like, see this Litecoin here, you know, unless this thing can break and get over this 9 EMA and get this thing curl it higher, you know, this thing could very well break under this support, and, you know, it could start drifting its way back down much lower. You know, even though this thing is $440, it's, you know, we don't know. This thing, if it doesn't start to make a move in the next day or two, probably going lower. And so you've got to really be careful with what you're doing right now. I've noticed in the 15 years I've been trading, I've noticed that you're going to make most of your money in speculative stuff in 1 or 2 months that last you the year. For a good chunk of the year, you just fuck around because there's no action, or you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And then when it comes, you make your whole year's nut. And that's what it is, right? You get your big trades and everything, and the rest of the year is just a grind. And so that's what we're kind of seeing in 2018. 2017 was just an easy year. 2017, it was just, you know, because Bitcoin was trending and all the alts were going, and, you know, it was just throw a dart at something and everything goes up. But, you know, this year we're in much more of a trader's market where, you know, you're going to be sitting there, you're going to do more waiting than trading, you know. But the people that can wait for the right moments, they're going to make money, you know. But the people that feel like they have to be in something all the time, they're going to lose, because there's nothing you can do. You can't force the action. You can't force the market to give you the action that's not there. Yeah, you can go in and create your own action and start hunting around for some random stuff, but it's not going to be low risk. And that's going to be always the key, is you're always measuring two things when you trade, guys. Always measuring two things when you trade. The first thing that you're measuring is probability. Do I have a high probability chance of this trade working? For that to happen, you need the market to and the particular coin or stock to be in your favor. The other part that you're always measuring when you're trading is just what's the risk in a trade, right? Where am I buying in relation to where my stop loss is? And then you're measuring that against the probability, and hopefully you can combine those two into something that's good. Right now, we're not really seeing any high probability action, because when you're going against the market, you know, you're really pissing in the wind with your mouth open, which is kind of fun if you're drunk, and, you know, but it's not really that cool, right? And so that's where it's going to go with this. Right now, the trend is down. You've got to learn how to short, and you got to be kind of trading with the trends while you wait for things to go in and die out. Oh, I don't even need to look at XMR. Jason, I can tell you everything you need to know about XMR. It's a how for show. 100% fact, it's a how for show. You don't even need to look at it. But I will tell you this, man, it's on an epic downtrend, and that's where you've got to be careful with XMR for this reason. This level of support right here, it started to break. And it's not getting any sign of kind of breaking back over support. So that's where it's going to go. The one thing that I don't like about the market when it's like this, see, when a market is crashing and you're getting like big down days, you can kind of trade around with the volatility. What do you guys notice about the market right now? See this? Versus the last time it dipped down. See the volatility, the big ranges? This is a slow bleed. What it's essentially doing is just putting your nuts in a vise, and it's just turning them a little bit inch by inch, grinding them till they're nothing but a bag of skin, right? You're just getting that slow bleed, which even makes it hard to short. Like if you're looking at Bitcoin, it's been going down every day, but the volatility hasn't been that crazy, right? It hasn't been like this where you could just go out and shred shorts and you'd have like 5,000 point ranges, 1,000 point ranges every day. When you have big range like that, you know, you could short and then you could long and you could do all of this type of stuff in between to generate income. But when you're in that slow bleed, the slow bleed is much harder to trade than a crash high volatility scenario. The market right now is just what it's doing is just giving you a little bit of a spike up so that the suckers are going to come in and go, oh, this is the bottom. And then the market goes bam, and it just rips it out from you and you're left selling. And that's what's happening, you know, every couple days. And that we've got to just be wary about. This happened, right, just yesterday. You got this kind of 1 hour spike. You're like, woo, here we go. And then rug pull, right? And that's what happens. It's that switch of control from buyers to sellers, telling you that the seller's on this market, and there ain't much we can do about it except, right, do the opposite of whatever that we think we can. So just kind of be mindful of that. You know, right now we're having just a little bit of that slow bleed, and the slow bleed is just hard to trade. You know, for me, that's the toughest one because you don't even have enough volatility to necessarily just shred like big trades. And you can see, right, like when this ETH went, right, all the move came real quick and then rug pull, right? And you get all the suckers coming in, they want to buy it as it's starting to spike, and then bam, it's back down. Yeah, you know, I mean, you can buy XMR. Sure, it's cheap, but cheap in relation to what? I mean, wasn't it just like $2-3 a couple, wasn't it $30 last year at this time? So if you're talking about May of last year, it was $20. So is it cheap? It's up 700% from its spot last year. So it looks cheap in relation to where it was the last 2 weeks ago, but it looks expensive from where it was 1 year ago. So cheap is all relative. Cheap can get cheaper, and it can get cheaper, and it can get a little bit cheaper. You've got to wait for a pattern, some type of setup, some type of bottoming formation that tells you game on. And that's when you want to get in. Because even if you have to buy 10% higher than where you thought, if you know for sure that it's going to go now, then that's better than getting it cheap if you don't know if it's going to go up. So like right now we could buy it at 152, but tomorrow it could be 145. And the next day it could be 142. I'd rather hit it at 175 and know for sure that it could run to 300. You know what I mean? Because when they run, they're going to run hot, right? And so what ends up happening is don't worry about timing it to the bottom by a few dollars, because at that point, those few dollars won't matter. And I do like XMR as like one of my longer term kind of coins that I watch. So, this is something I've been watching too, and making sure that, if I see the time that it could do something, I'm ready for it. I just don't know what it is. So, we don't have a good entry on these. Like this Quantum, it broke these old lows. And then it kind of broke back above, and now it's kind of hanging out. So, we don't know. Like, if it gets over that 9 EMA and can close above, I mean, you may have a shot. But it could very well just come back down also. So there is no good entry for it yet. You won't know till you get the pattern, right? Till you get that specific look that you need to see to say that your risk is limited and your probability is high. So if you think about what a bottoming pattern is, you need to look for a 1, 2, 3 pattern. You need to see a base breakout. You need to see like a handful of things start to happen before you say, okay, I'm ready to go. Now, you may take a couple shots. Like, you know what? If the market starts to run, you may take a shot and use your intraday support and resistance to make a trade, but you just got to, you've got to manage your risk. Like, we took this Quantum, Quantum started popping yesterday, and, we didn't know if this was the market bounce or not. So, what I do is I go my intraday chart, and, we take a trade over here. That's just a low-risk trade, right? So I'm buying this flag breakout, essentially, in hopes that, maybe this flag breakout will start its bigger run. And you can see, like, it broke out at 13 and ran to 13.50, and then it just died. It popped up a little bit, but then it just died. So, like, I got out flat, Essentially, once it starts to go, I'll put a stop at my buy price. And if it's not, going to hold, you get out flat. But what you don't want to do is hold it and marry it and think, okay, this is the bottom, and then it comes all the way back down, and your gain turns into a loss. Always in this type of scenario, what I'm trying to do is get a really, really good entry, and then it can pop, and I put my stop at my buy price and turn it into a free trade. I'll trade it on the casino. So then if it just keeps going, great. My risk is locked in, and if I caught the bottom by just blind luck, then I caught the bottom. But if I didn't, then I just get out flat. And so what happens is when you're trying to do it that way and try to time the bottom that way, it may take you 5 damn tries to get it right. And that's where you've got to just be mindful of it. So use your smaller term time frames, 15-minute, hourly charts. And I'm not a big fan of the 4-hour charts. I know the crypto nerds, they love the 4-hour chart. They think that the 4-hour chart is fantastic, that it's good people. But, I haven't noticed any need for it. So, I tend to stay away from it. The best things to use for intraday trading, 9 EMA, 20 EMA, VWAP for me. I know some people like to use longer ones like 100, 200, and there's all these weird kind of crypto indicators that people use, but I find the simpler the better in terms of having too many indicators. Use a handful that makes sense to your style of trading. My style of trading is momentum and trends. And so the things that I use are based on momentum and trends, right? And so that's where I got to go with it. So I personally, as the president, the Donald, I don't use 4-hour charts, okay? I consult on all my trades with 5-star generals. I've got 132 5-star generals. They're working on fantastic projects. They believe in the technology, and they do great work. They do great work. And that's it. You know, you got to kind of keep it really simple like that. Anybody got any tickers they want to look at? So in general, the thesis is what? We've got to wait for this bottom to hit. Let's see how it acts when Bitcoin gets down here. Then we got to go. Hey, DD, have you not been hearing anything I said? You can't pick. You can't pick something and just say it's going to be good. Everything has got to be timed via patterns. You've got to measure risk and you've got to measure probability. If you blindly throw something like at a TRX, TRX is probably junk. 99.9% of coins are junk. None of them do anything yet, right? And so if you just buy it thinking this is going to be great, it may not work. TRX has a $1 billion market cap. It probably doesn't do anything, right? So is it cheap? Sure, it's 6 pennies, but is it really cheap? Because it's also got a $1 billion market cap, right? So you've got to kind of measure it those both ways. Good, 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 good. Yeah, BNB's a hoe too. It's a hoe for sure. This chart's just not giving us any details yet on what we can do with it. It's just sitting in a range. You know, you could buy kind of closer to the bottom of the range and sell the top if you want to play a range game. But, you know, otherwise, no. I love the Donald, hence why we do the impersonations. They're fantastic people. When I buy the Bitcoin, I consult only 5-star generals the best. Oh yeah, they got a $1 billion white paper, which is a nice white paper. Very nice. Good, good. Anybody else? Oh, good question. Hey, Jupe, how you doing, brother? Guys, Jupe's asking about VWAP. Do you have any tutorial videos on it? I believe, so if you go to the Bulls on Wall Street YouTube and just type in VWAP, you'll probably see some stuff that I've done on it on the stock side. And I use it the same, stock side, crypto side. Otherwise, you know, we do classes in our boot camp about it. You know, I do more live classes, so I may not have a online tutorial on it, but I've definitely made some trading videos in terms of stuff that I've particularly traded and used the VWAP on. And I typically use it as more of a moving average, you know, kind of a line in the sand when I'm looking at a particular coin or particular stock. And they work very well for bounce spots. You want to kind of look at them almost more midday. So, you know, when you're looking at, you know, when you're looking at like a particular stock, it's usually around that lunchtime. They really come into play they really come into play more during that midday period versus, you know, like an end of day type of trade. like something like this. So like this would be something that's like trending in the morning. And then once you get towards that midday, I often use it as a particular bounce spot. Didi, I don't know if anything about BitTorrent, my friend, unfortunately. So that I don't know. For the most part, I just trade this stuff. I do have some holdings in Unicoin Gold, Mana, and BAT, some token ones that I have left, but no major investments at this point. Those are the three that I kind of center around, that are like my three faves. And then I, ZRX too, but I'm waiting for this to get down to about $1 before I try it again. Good, good, good. All right, folks. Anybody else got any last questions? It's good to see everybody as always. Hey, out on Bale. Good question. So, guys, Bale's asking just what would make a coin run hard against BTC. I don't think of it as a coin's running hard against BTC. Remember that you use BTC like you use US dollar. You're using it to purchase a coin. So the value of the coin is its own. So I don't sit there and think about the pair. I think about the actual US dollar of the coin. Because you could sell that coin into BTC, you could sell that coin back into ETH, you could sell that coin back into US dollars, you could sell a coin into USD, you could sell a coin into BNB these days. And so, that straight BTC pair is much more meaningless now. Hey, Scott, I personally don't use the Elliott wave because Elliott wave is nothing. All it is just a measure of trends, right? And all stocks, cryptos, when they're trending, they take stair steps up and stair steps down. So all they're doing is it's just common sense. Good, 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 good. And if anybody got any questions or anything, feel free to email me, if I missed something. And I will see everybody in the next week. I'll probably start doing these YouTube lives on the stock stuff too. Maybe start next week, so we'll have dual YouTube lives, every week. So we have a little bit of stock shred, a little bit of coin shred, and we'll get this thing going. Okay, NASDAQ. That might be a schmuck, but mostly only on Fridays. And only if I'm drinking. Otherwise, I'm still pretty cool. Yeah, XVG was one too. Some of these little turd coins will go. But they do all kind of come back down to earth at some point too. They go when the general market's going. So like something like SVG, it can run really hot and really cold, just depending on what the general market is doing. Hey, Mr. Yates, what's going on? Yeah, I noticed that a lot of people like EOS. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It's just it's not trending right now. So it's more a matter of just where does this thing break? Does it break up or does it break down? And it's hard to tell right now. Its future on a short-term basis is muddled. I don't know much about this thing long-term. On a short-term basis, it's just kind of stuck in a little bit of a range, and a lot of it's going to depend on which way it breaks, up or down. Later, Jason. CwK, man. Well, I love you guys, as always. I'll see you all next week.
Peace.